The Cow Palace. Proclaimed as the most versatile building at the Maryland State Fairgrounds, this facility showcases just that every December when it replaces the housing of our four-legged farm friends with a new tenant, two-wheel machines of mayhem. Celebrating 50 years of racing, the Timonium Indoors has created buzz and brawls prior to the holidays and has certainly added a few names to Santa's naughty list. By the time Flat Trak Flashback began attending racing at Timonium, the facility was approaching 30 years of racing inside the Cow Palace, and several riders were staking their claim as the Prince of the Palace. Racing in Timonium would honor fallen Flat Track star Rodney Ferris of nearby Cockeysville, Maryland. Rodney, a beloved personality on the circuit, and one of the many stars that was gone too soon. Toward the end of the 90s, the Cow Palace would become the Palace of Price, as Georgie Price collected several wins over the years until the likes of Jake Johnson and Mike Barnes became challengers to his throne. By the mid to late 2000s, Timonium had become Don's domain, with Don Mullen being the man to beat. In recent years, different riders would go on to have success, and for a while, Timonium became known as Texter Turf. But lately, the Cow Palace has a new name, Bromley's Building, when it comes to the pro class. Being so drastically different than anything these riders compete on during the year, what makes Timonium such a special place?
I've been coming here, since I was 3 years old, so 26 years ago. I came here and I raced as my brother, who was 4 years old, and I was 3, so that was fun, trying to sneak that through. But I've been coming here, I wouldn't say every year, but probably 20 years I've been here, not consecutive, but over the 26 years I've been here, 20 years. Back in the late 80s, my dad used to come here, and he used to rattle some feathers with Todd Stith and all them Maryland boys. So they used to do a cool 7-round series down here, and it was drawed out. Like, those guys, they would kill to win. And I wish we had that now. Not a lot of places you can say you race concrete every year, and around here you do. So my goal is to one day be able to go out and do San Jose if they ever do that again. And it'd be cool to try out there. I've had some good success in Milwaukee, went in it 3 years in a row. So I don't know. It's a special thing. Like, some people are ice people, some people are dirt people, and I guess I'm a concrete guy.
I've been coming to Timonium since, my first race was here in 1995. So that makes it special just in itself that it was my first ever flat track race. I've probably been coming here since I'm 35. I've been coming here since I was 4 years old, probably 3 or 4, playing in the pits. And then my first race, I was 5 years old. So just it's close to home, and like I say, it's just nostalgic being the first race, my first ever flat track race, and being here was cool.
Do you remember your first win here?
Yes, I do. Brandon Robinson took out Taylor White on the last lap in the 250 class and snuck around for the win. So it was a pretty wild race. Being the indoor bar banging, sliding on concrete. You tell people you ride a motorcycle with no front brake on dirt, they think it's crazy. And you tell them you race on concrete and it takes less than 7 seconds to do a lap. It's enticing to people. It's a good show. It's motorcycles in a bull ring, basically. It's a wild event.
So my first race here at Timonium, I think, was '92. So I've raced here. I think I'm the only one at this point I've never missed a race since '92. So I've raced 32 years. 32 years I've raced every race here. I actually was a little under the weather today, and if it wasn't for the fact it's the 50th year and I've been to every one, I might have stayed home, but I'm glad I came. There's so much history here. So this was my first race ever. The guys that started it, Gary Nixon and Taylor White Sr., who Taylor won the Daytona 200 a couple years, not with his bikes, with a rider on it. I don't need to say anything about Gary, what his accomplishments, but the history of where it started and kind of where it's gone. It's one of the most stressful, fun races you could run because it's so critical to be perfect, and the smallest mistake you're off. So you're really racing yourself in perfection, and that's what I think I like the most about it, because most places you could make a mistake and recover. Here, one mistake you usually don't recover from.
The biggest key, I I think I found over the years is I'm used to move a lot, and back when I was riding for Nick Henderson, he used to always tell me just relax, just be calm. The less you move, the less the bike fatigues. And since then, I kind of wouldn't say I've been winning here a lot more since then, but I have been doing a lot better. And the biggest thing I found is almost pretend like you're sitting on a lazy couch and just let the bike do its thing. Because the more you fight it, the more you lose grip and the worse you do.
Bromley would be head and shoulders above the competition. And no, that's not just talking about his height. Dan Bromley would take the win in both pro main events as well as the Dash for Cash on the night. Poe, on the other hand, would have a few mistakes derail his evening in the two-stroke main event and the Rodney Ferris Memorial class. Nick Henderson would be the busiest rider on the night, contesting 4 different classes, and he also got lower than anyone on the night to claim the win in the limbo contest. Following a limbo victory, Henderson would lose out to Todd Stiff in a hotly contested Mad Dog Dash for Cash, but bounced back to take the victory in his first 3 main events on the night, but one moment would derail his main event clean sweep. After starting way back, Henderson nearly passes the whole field in the 250 AB main event, but not quite able to clear his competitors, and he would have to settle behind Corey Strickler, who would also be victorious on the night in the 40-plus class. So what's it like riding so many different machines on the tight confines of Timonium?
Probably the hardest thing tonight was that 250 main event. So I jumped off of an XR100 and jumped right onto a 98 CR250, which like is arguably the worst handling bike that exists, you know? Like trying to get my brain to remember how to get a start with each one, the different clutches. So like it's pretty extreme going for a 100 to a 250. I started more like I did on my 125 and had the clutch like letting it kind of lunge, and the clutch just started grabbing and it rolled past the line. So I technically jumped when it came from the back row. So it's definitely challenging switching, but I kind of like that. I like the challenge. That bike won its first race here in '87 with Georgie Price. So that bike has been through Georgie Price, Mike Hackers raced it, Jake Johnson, I think Paul Lynch spun laps. Actually, these wheels are off of Paul Lynch's bike that Kenny Coolbith rode. I think Kenny's rode this one too. Like this thing has been through so many big M1 amateur nationals through the years. And that was my first bike I bought myself at 12 years old. So I tried to, which has turned out the 125 class has become the biggest class and the biggest money class. Try to like keep that thing on the track just because of the history of it. And it's such a cool old motorcycle.
So even though the last race may have left a sour taste in Henderson's mouth, he still appeared to be the most popular rider in the pits following the racing action, taking time to chat with fellow competitors, officials, and spend time with some of the younger fans who could one day become part of the racing history in Timonium's next 50 years.
I've got a 1.5-year-old now, and man, it really makes you start to think different about, not that I didn't before, like push to help the up and coming kids and all, but we kind of have a stall right now in the youth classes. So man, any kids we can try and help get involved and keep coming back. It's like, if we don't have them, we don't have the races.
And speaking of the youth riders, how about Keen Keith, who had a flawless night, winning both 50cc classes and giving the crowd one of the best one-man shows on his 65cc as well. Winning not a half bad early Christmas present. And speaking of Christmas, what would a holiday party be without an appearance by Santa Claus? With that victory lap by Dan Bromley, another year of racing inside the Cow Palace comes to a close. A massive thank you to everyone who has played a role in bringing the excitement of concrete indoor motorcycle racing to the fans at the Maryland State Fairgrounds for the past 50 years. What a milestone, and what a delight to spend a night in a packed grandstand watching adrenaline pumping, bar banging flat track racing on the Timonium concrete.